Hey everybody, it's Phil Strazullo from Select Software Reviews, and we're here with a really interesting guy who's going to talk to us all about the interview process, really drop some knowledge on us around how to be better at running the process, better interviewers, etc. Um, I'm going to try really, really hard to pronounce his name correctly. Um, Imthiyaaz, welcome and thanks so much for joining us. Do you mind giving us a brief background on yourself and kind of what you do and what your company does?
So again, thanks, Phil. Thanks for this opportunity and sort of giving me the time to sort of talk to your audience. So I run a company called. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Sixatech product company, which is a pre-recorded video interview platform and a skills assessment platform. So far we have processed about 25,000 video interviews in the South Asian region, which resulted in roughly around 3,000 jobs in the last 3 years. So we are based in Sri Lanka, and our technical teams are all based in Sri Lanka. But we operate in markets like Malaysia, Singapore, Dubai, and the UK. We have served more than 40 companies, and currently we are working with roughly around 20 to 25 companies on a monthly and annual basis.
That's great. Congratulations on your business and your success. I'm kind of curious if you have any perspective. I know you've spent a lot of time in the US as well. Do you have any perspective on how the interview process is different in Southeast Asia versus the US and maybe more Western markets?
So one thing that I actually understood is because, so technically we are not allowed to see the videos that are getting processed from the companies, but this is the experience I shared because I sat through a lot of companies who were like either expanding out of their country, or either expanding into new markets, or either they were looking at downsizing and shifting everything, outsourcing purposes. So what I have seen is the interview process is sort of the same globally. If you go, like the process they follow, the ideologies they follow, or the way how companies are. So like, I'll tell you one thing, Phil. One thing that is really common in all interviews is they say the simplest thing, which I say companies to avoid, is tell us about yourself, right? You know, I think to myself, like, tell us about yourself is one of the most smallest thing you can ask. So I always still be very specific what you can ask your candidates. And the other thing is that I have seen is that this is very very common. I think, I don't know whether you disagree with me on this, is that when you call a candidate to come to an interview, it could be an applicant, it could be a passive person, or it could be a intern, whoever it is, they rarely do make it on time, or they don't make it at all. I think this is something is when I was working in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has this problem majorly. This is the first market we pilot tested the product, so we understood what it was. But then when I went to Malaysia, when I went to Dubai, UK, US, they all had the same problem. So I wanted to figure out why is that problem coming up. So then a simple thing that I understood is that you don't engage with them, right? So if 1,000 people apply, how are you going to engage with 1,000 people? That was a big question a lot of companies had. So like some guys, like these, we work with a company called, of course you guys might know it, here in Sri Lanka and Malaysia. We work with Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. So these guys came and said to us, like, we would love to talk with us. So they just spend millions just putting out their employer brand. They couldn't engage with everyone who is applying. So what we gave them a solution on to engage with the people you actually want. So in the interview stage also, you should be very careful, especially when companies are doing their phone screen, is who are the right people I need to engage with. It is sometimes really hard to take the call, but I think that is very vital. So all the markets we work with, especially in the US, as well, because now these days there are layoffs going on and everything like that. But when one industry drops, there is another industry that is actually gaining momentum, right? So we work with those industries as well. So from my experience, what I have seen is, all the countries have one thing in common: they want to engage with the right candidate, but they end up engaging in sometimes with the wrong, or just engage with everyone. So engagement is a very key that I see in all interviews in all the countries that we have worked with.
Yeah, interesting. And what's your advice for driving that engagement?
So it's pretty simple, right? Like as an example, if you take a US job currently, and if you want to apply for a job, hey, you go on LinkedIn. There are a lot of other job sites out there. I'm just going to take the example LinkedIn, because like that's the majority. If there is a famous website, still people just go into LinkedIn and apply. So when someone applies, just simply tell them like, are you selected or not? Hey, like if you go to the first interview stage, maybe give them the flexibility. Hey, do you want to come in to the interview, or do you want to do it online? Again, based on the company's remote policies or whatever the policies they have. But it's the ways to give the flexibility to the candidate. So maybe let's say as an example, if it's a passive candidate who, we work with a lot of IT companies. So this is something is because junior developers or senior developers, these guys are all working, right? If you give the flexibility to them, hey, like, okay, you can come physically. Unfortunately, we are not there on the weekends. Come physically, it's great. But we don't mind if you guys just come into a quick interview online, right? No problem at all, right? So you give them the flexibility. That's a way of engaging. Keep them informed in what stages they are in. If a person completes the first interview, don't go dark on the guy, right? So this is something which a lot of Dubai companies do that I have noticed, is that after the first interview, they have to call and find out, am I selected or not? That's actually a bad impression. So it's simple using an ATS. I think Phil, you did a great article on about choosing the right application tracking system. I think you did an interview with one person as well. I can't recall the name. So I read in that, and since it mentions how it's free. There are a lot of free platforms as well, right? You don't need to pay for certain things. So I think it's there on the Select Software website as well. So it's very important that you choose your method. Just a normal phone call can take a long place, especially if you're in the IT industry, which we majority work with. You need to have that engagement, because a junior doesn't stay as a junior. In about a year, that person has high potential to become a senior. So you have to be very careful of who you engage and how you communicate with them as well, right? The problem is like, right now, if a junior person applies, so let's, as an example, this is something I saw, is even for a CEO role, an intern applies, right? Hey, let's try my luck, right? So I know the HR people are going through that problem, especially talent acquisition managers. But what really matters is you use the right tools, and you trust on automation, and you be very direct and what the instructions are. That simple as putting up a process on your careers website or even on your job post will take a long way by explaining. Those are the small things I think you should focus on and engage with your potential candidates.
Hmm. This is a kind of a different question, but what are some of the mistakes that you see HR teams making when they're buying tools?
So the mistake, I'll tell you the mistake that I actually see. Majority I saw in South Asia, and I little saw a bit of US companies. They always look for, Phil. They look for products which has everything in it, right? Which is like very. It's not possible, right? You're not going to have everything, right? So, take example, Malaysia, right? And Malaysia, and of course Sri Lanka, is where they always say, "Hey, Imthiyaaz, we need a product which has everything." So, like they ask me whether I have payroll. It's like, hey, no, I'm recruitment. I don't have payroll, right? They ask training and development, all of that. So don't expect that all your problems or all your worries or all your process needs can be answered by one platform or by one company, whoever is doing it, because eventually you are not going to get it delivered. The best thing that companies should do is, okay, get a good ATS. It doesn't need to be linked to payroll or whatnot, and see how integration friendly they are. So if you go on platforms like Workable, Workday, they have a list of partners who they work with, the list of vendors. These are very important aspect, right? So this is something like, as an example, we have like, if I'm correct, about 30 to 50 integration partners. And in the 30 to 50 integration partnerships, we understood, so this was a situation which came with the San Francisco company. They are, if I'm correct, it's called Greenhouse, the ATS system is. So they came and said, hey, Imthiyaaz, like, we asked Greenhouse whether they have interns. They said, like, hey, Greenhouse is not responsible to get you guys video interviews. We are. So I think you guys should see is there integration? We'll integrate it, right? So one thing that companies should avoid is they're not going to find all their solutions in one platform. They're going to find it maybe in two or three. So I would say max keep it to about five if you can keep it about three, but just keep it to about five if you really want to have multiple products. And I've noticed some companies use ClickUp and they try to put hiring into that also, which doesn't make sense. ClickUp is a very much of a project management tool. So it's very important that you're not going to find all your solution in one platform. That is a number one mistake a lot of these companies do right now.
What's the best question that you've ever had from a talent acquisition manager who's vetting your software? Like, what's the most insightful question or toughest question maybe that you've gotten?
So the toughest question a talent acquisition manager has asked us whenever we actually usually do a demo. So the toughest question they have asked is like, this is not a tough question, but we feel, will I lose candidates, right? Okay, if I introduce pre-recorded video interviews, if I do coding assessments, am I going to lose people, right? Maybe you might find 1 in 100 lazy genius who doesn't want to do anything. He just wants the job and he will perform well. Well, I always say like, okay, it's 1 in 100. You're going to leave 99 away who possibly can be employed. So until now, that is actually a question everyone asks us, like, hey, what if I lose candidates? So my question is like, what if you what if you don't apply this? What's going to happen? Maybe like you are not going to lose one person, but maybe 99 of the people you get to meet, right? So there's always an opportunity cost, right? In economics also, there's always something called the opportunity cost. You're going to lose someone, but you're going to gain a much more better talent, right? So you don't know what is coming up next, right? This person can work, this can work. But the thing is, like, I think this is something I got learned from Gary Vaynerchuk, is that one guy asked a question and said, how, if my employees don't work properly, what should I do? He simply said, just fire fast and hire fast. It can take all of your time to hire someone, but if you want to fire someone, just do it immediately, right? So that's what. So you can spend much as the time you want on hiring. You can spend 2-3 months, but unfortunately, candidates are very impatient now, and company top leaders are also impatient. They get projects, they need to run it. So I would say toughest question someone has asked is like, what if I lose candidates? So what if you don't? Then my answer is, but if you don't apply a solution, any solution, to engage with it, what is going to happen then? You might lose 5, you might lose 1. So opportunity cost.
What do you think the future of video interviews is in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I think you see, there are some companies like HireView, who like big multinational companies like JP Morgan, Unilever, Standard Chartered. These guys are all using it. Is this AI facial recognition software? See whether they are lying or not. Unfortunately, that tech is, to be really honest, it's about 8 years old now, right? So it didn't actually catch up. I would say is that companies are now going into a much more global talent. So if you take as an example, Sri Lanka currently, which is like the IT destination, is losing some talent. So they are looking at other markets like Bangladesh, Vietnam, or anything like that. So the future is going to be is that maybe your CEO is in America, your CTO is in UK, and probably your entire tech team might be in Vietnam, Philippines, or anywhere like that. So your HR team is going to have a time looking at hiring these people from 4 different time zones, 2 different continents. So they need tools to keep them productive, which is very important. You can't be waking up at the Philippines time when you're in US at middle of the night and interviewing people. So what is going to happen is in the next 5 years, what I feel like is happening is that less people will be going through Microsoft, Teams calls, Google Meets, or Zoom calls, right? They will probably shift towards more of assessment kind of a thing to identify, okay, is this person worth my time having a conversation with? and then gradually shift towards pre-recorded video interviews. And in the pre-recorded video interviews, there will be not facial recognition, but speech recognition, which is very important to identify communication. And you can match data analytics. Data analytics is going to play a big role, right? So people are going to identify what are the trends. Okay, like the person I rated 4 stars in the last video, maybe they are going to benchmark the next 5 with that video and find out what exactly that individual said and start rating. Hey, this guy is good based on the hire we did yesterday. So they're going to benchmark it. Benchmarks are going to happen because we are working with so many countries at the same time. Benchmarking is going to happen as well. So very important, because facial recognition and whether to see whether they are lying or not met with a lot of criticism the last few years. So I don't think that will grow. So data analytics of the tech, the speech will play a major role the next 5 years. And at the same time, a lot of people will ditch the Teams and the Zoom calls, and they will look at more of pre-recorded assessments. These are some of the things that they will look at, because they want to find out, is it worth my time even engaging with them? So I think in the next 5 years, there's going to be a lot of changes, especially in the IT industry.
Yeah, very interesting. Do you have any last tips for talent acquisition managers who are just trying to figure out, how to optimize their assessment process?
I would say is that open up your assessment process. Don't rely on templates. That is very crucial. Like if you're working with a company recently in Dubai, which is an IT company, they were heavily relying on templates. Even their own CTO couldn't complete those templates assessments, which was like mind blowing for us. Like, oh, seriously, you can't complete that, right? We were thinking that, right? So always remember, HR should not go blind, or the talent acquisition manager should not go blind and just say because a platform is recommending this is the best test, don't go it. Open it up with your CTO or your head of technology. It could be anything. It could be simple IQ test, right? A UI UX designer, whatever the test is. Open it up with your team. Create a transparency. Know what they want, because the number one thing about talent acquisition is, you know you don't want any of your department people pointing and saying, hey, I know the TA team is not doing their work, I'm not getting any people, right? But open it up, make it transparent. And when you're making an assessment or video or deciding on interview questions, you should know ultimately the person whoever you're hiring is going to work. What matters is that person's feedback. If you match someone you think that you feel is good and you tell your other person to work with, probably won't work. So it's very important that at the start itself, you show the transparency. These are the people that are coming in. These are the assessments they have done. What do you think? Then only I'll call them for an interview, so that you can have a less stress, or the talent acquisition manager can have less stress in the process, and you can push the major decision making to the person who the potential candidate will be working. That would give a much more better understanding, and that would be my number one advice: transparency.
I like it. It's good advice. If anybody out there wants to track you down and get in touch, what's the best way to do that?
So I think you guys can go into 6video.com, and I think you will be 6video.com, or you can just go 6video.com/book a demo, where you guys can arrange a demo and we can have a conversation. Or Phil, you will be providing my email as well, so it's imthiyaaz@sixervideo.com. But just head over to sixervideo.com. That's SIXER, Sixer, just like the cricket thing, sixervideo.com. So you guys can reach me out there, or just add me on my LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Imthiyaaz, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me.